Hey everybody, you're going to enjoy the heck out of this webinar. Oh my goodness, we just wrapped. Jason and I had a lovely conversation with Amy Meyers and Susanna Doyle. They work with our partners, Muscular Dystrophy Association. We've had the good fortune of working with them for the better part of 7 years. So pretty cool how much history we have. They have decades of experience engaging donors and getting folks to give and pre-commit dollars for the fund of need. So we talked about pre-event fundraising in general, because that's what they do. They're so heavily involved in events for MDA, and they do tons of them a year, as a matter of fact, all across the nation. We were talking about getting pre-committed dollars before the event and pre-commitments for your fund of need. We even got to, like, I call it like their scientific method to, how long should the fund of need video or speech be, and how long should it take in general for the course of the, and where should it be placed. So hang on there till the end, because it got really, really good. If you have any questions for them, first off, show them some love on LinkedIn. Reach out to Susanna and Amy Meyers on LinkedIn for us if you don't mind. But if you have any questions during the episode, feel free to leave them and we'll get to them, of course, right here on the channel. So thanks so much for tuning in. Buckle in. It's another great HGA free webinar. Enjoy it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get things kind of cranked up and we'll get going, because I think a few people will pop in. But thanks everybody for being here. We're so excited that you could join us, taking time out of your busy day. Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson, HJ Fundraising. We've got two great guests here in a minute. We're going to let them tell what they do. But they are longtime good friends of HGA, tremendous fundraisers. Amy Meyers has been on multiple times. And Amy, what's your title nowadays? Grand poobah of everything?
No, they shortened it. It's Vice President Community Events.
All right.
It just encompasses a lot.
Yeah.
You're
How about you, Susanna? Tell us what you do.
I'm a manager for our signature events program, so I handle our golf and gala events.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Thanks,
couple things, just a little housekeeping. I know Trevor normally does this, but I just felt like taking over and doing it today, just because.
I'm drinking my coffee. Thank you.
Yeah. State of the end and win. Everybody that's here, we're going to give away a trip that you'll be able to use for your next fundraiser. And if you're watching this online, please leave a comment. And we know a lot of people look at this after the fact or watch it on YouTube. Please leave us any comments. If you agree, disagree, questions that you have, we look at this stuff. Please, but most of all, pay the fee, which is just share this with another nonprofit professional. Please do that. We like to get the word out and let people see it. And we're so glad that you could be here. So
fun.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and we do happen to have the most profitable fundraising auctions items in fundraising. So if you do need something, we are here for that. We don't. That'll be about that. You'll hear about it, but we do actually do that. So yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, we're so bad. I was telling someone that yesterday. I was like, what do you guys do? I said, well, we do a really horrible job of self-promotion. I mean, I'll tell you a 30-minute story at the drop of a hat, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we're doing auction, we were talking about auction items one day. This has been a couple of years ago, and somebody in the chat, they said, "Does anybody know one of these companies we can get this stuff?" And somebody in there said, "Answer for us."
I think Amy was on. I think
Amy was do it. That's what these guys do. And they're going, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, we do a really horrible job. So we're seeing someone. We seek help about that. We're seeing Jason and I are seeing someone about that, so we can fix that. See that we have.
So, hey, one real quick thing though, if you have any questions while we're going through this, if you're on with us today and you have a question, please hit us with it. We've got some great brain power here and we want to do that. So, well, we're going to talk about pre-event fundraising.
Yeah.
I think,
go ahead.
Well, I think this is always fun to talk about because it is, to me, in my mind, it is where nonprofit fundraising, charitable galas, auctions are won or lost right there. I think it's all about what happens in the pre-event. We had a real interesting topic the other day. Trevor dropped this on me actually this week on our podcast. And he said, hey, you've got an event. It's this next Saturday and there's 8 other events going on. What do you do? And I just said, well, if you've done your pre-event fundraising like you're supposed to do, if you've done all your work on which is the hard stuff, it doesn't matter, because if you've done all your pre-event fundraising, hit your goals, it's not going to matter. If you haven't, well, it's too late to do anything about it now anyway, and you just got to go have your event. But I think that's where so much is won or lost. Would y'all agree with that? I mean, you guys put on a lot of events every year, Amy, Susanna, obviously doing these galas. That's where these things happen.
100%.
The night of the event is just really the icing on the cake. That's where you execute you do it, but all the work is really done before.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Well, that's why we wanted to have you all on, actually, because you focus so much on this heavy lifting, so to speak, pre-event, just to make sure that and Jason and Amy are the only people, and Susanna, you'll speak the same language, are the only people I've ever heard that said you need to have this much committed before we even open the doors. And I know that's something that you all do internally. And so it just makes so much sense for us to have you on today. And once again, just want to nudge folks with questions and all that stuff as well during the course of it. I'm here to take notes and to learn something and to hit you with those questions and come up with some wild ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think it's something, like Jason said, it's often overlooked, obviously, by so many organizations. And I want to also say this too, because I want to get a little granular. The impetus for this conversation when we reached out to Amy maybe 30 days ago was folks want to know how you get pre-commitments for the fund to need. And y'all, I don't think you call it a fund to need. I think you call it a
mission moment, mission
Mission
drive,
moment.
give from the heart.
Yeah.
Depends on the event.
Yeah, totally. Right. And okay, well, that speaks to that too.
Well, but let's talk about this
too,
real quick.
right?
I think to be real specific. So this is a specific period of time during the event when, we're not auctioning off something, we're not selling something, we're not having somebody speak, but where it's a specific time to ask people for donations is exactly what it is. Call it a paddle raise, call it a fund to need, whatever you want to call it, but that's what it is. And this is where you say, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to do this. And we're looking for, who'd give 25,000, somebody raise their hand, who give 10, raise their hand, 5,000, 2,000, all the way down. And that's specifically what this is. And I think it's a really great topic, and their question is really, really good. So I'm going to just back up and let you guys talk about your process at MDA, how y'all do that, because I think it's real interesting.
Sure. Amy, do you want me to?
Yeah, jump in.
Please, Susanna, please.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people spend a lot of their pre-event energy on sponsorships because you want to get people in the room, and they may miss the opportunity to get the donors set up for success. I know internally, there's quite a few different best practices, but I feel like you want to make sure you have people in the room that already know they're going to raise their paddle, because that way you ensure there are no crickets. So having those conversations early, talking to your past donors, talking to people who gave the year prior, and setting yourself up for success. So once you get into the room, there's no surprises. It's also a great opportunity if for some reason someone can't sponsor again, you can redirect that sponsorship money to give to the mission drive. So if they're like, oh, we can't come this year. Oh, that's fine. But we'd love to still take that, sponsorship and recognize you in the give from the heart, or recognize you as a mission match donor. And I know I think live auctioneers vary. A lot like to start one level up from what you have, and some like to start at the level you have. So if you have a $20,000 donor, you could start at $25,000. You might be surprised, or your $20,000 donor could be really inspired by the mission moment and start higher than you expect. But you always want to know you have someone secured where you're opening up, so then it starts that energy that you can then take on and continue the momentum.
Yeah,
I want to talk about.
I want to double click on that, Suzanne, just so Jay, just so the audience.
I'm retired now, but I did this stuff for 30 years, and I started really doing Fund to Need about 15 years before I quit, which was a couple of years ago. And back then it wasn't what it was. It was like, hey, I got a crazy idea. Who here would give another $1,000? Just, you're not going to buy anything or get anything. We have people raise their hand and, oh my gosh, look, we just raised $13,000 in 30 seconds. And, it was that kind of a thing, this just real impulse deal. And it graduated up to where it would be very, very planned out, very mapped out, and I think, so one of the questions that I have in that, and auctioneers absolutely are different. I've talked to hundreds of them. They're like, I will not ask for anything that I don't have. I didn't care. I would ask for whatever impulse hit me. You know, they just, what do you think? You know what? I feel like there's somebody here at 25 grand. I know a guy that asked for, just on a whim, asked for 50,000. And he held on to it and held on to it and held on to it. And he got somebody to raise their hand, and not only got one, but he got two people to do it. So I'm not, but those are rare occurrences. I'm not suggesting on the amount, but it's still, you don't want to gamble. I'm not a gambler. I used to be. Don't gamble at all, because I think this is too critical of a money fundraising piece of the pie that you don't want to do that. So I'm going to ask a real specific question. I'd like to, if it's different, I'm going to ask Amy, and then Susanna, I'd like to hear your deal. Specifically, how do you make that ask to someone that you know has capacity, and you're asking them? Be real specific in that, and how that ask comes about.
I mean, I think it's important to preface with it really starts at the previous event. When you're done with that event, you are already starting to steward that donor that donated at your drive. And we pull events, and we're looking, and we've got, and we did exactly what you're talking about, Jason. Susanna and I just did an event, and it was, what do we do? Auctioneers like, let's do 25,000. Who knows? Did it, 3 people. I think you really, really have to have a conversation with your auctioneer to make sure that they know to move quickly. They have to read the room, because you do not want those crickets. So I think it's really important to note that you have to have that conversation and kind of lead them how you want it to go. But then it really is pulling those donors, seeing who gave to your mission moment, fund a need, whatever you're going to call it, stewarding them throughout the year. So when next year's event comes around, it's a straight up conversation. It's not awkward. And typically we're going to ask for more. If they gave 10,000, we're going to ask if they'll give 15 next year. And I know, like with Susanna and I and our team, we also try to be creative with it. And it's not just can you give 15,000 this year? How about if you give 15,000, and can we use it as a match at maybe the $5,000 level, and we can get 3 $5,000 donors? So we kind of put a twist on it. And I think the other thing that my team does really well is also putting that value or that return on investment, in that this $15,000 is going to, help fund 4 hours of research or whatever, but really put an equivalent to what what is their gift going to do? What is the impact? And I think people want to hear that. They want to know what their impact is, but it's a straight up ask. And it depends on the relationship. It might be a phone call. It might be an email. I have some that I every year just send them an email and ask, because I built that relationship and can ask through an email.
Yeah.
Susanna, what do you have to add to that?
I think what I want to make sure everyone takes away from what Amy said, and I completely agree with, is the relationship building portion. And actually, our team just shared something someone saw on LinkedIn, and it was like, your donors don't want to feel like an ATM machine. And that really struck a chord with me, because it's like, they don't want to just come and we talk to them once a year. So our team tries really hard, and we share ideas, and it's like, hey, I'm sending out this mission moment this week, or hey, we got this really great report, so we're going to send it to so-and-so because I know they're passionate about SMA or Duchenne or whichever form of muscular dystrophy. But we try to touch them throughout the year, emails, phone calls, text messages, depending on the relationship. So then when we do make that direct ask, which it is, they have heard from us in the past 10 months.
I want to clarify something too.
Okay.
And I think this is really important for people that are listening, because we know that the average paid staff in a nonprofit in the United States is 2.5 full-time employees. Okay. So maybe somebody's listening, they're going, yeah, you guys have this big staff, but I want to be real clear. Y'all don't have this giant staff of people for the amount of events that you do. Y'all do a lot of events, but it's not like you've got 100 people, right? In your department, correct, Amy?
Correct.
No, yeah, each of my staff, like a Susanna, she'll do 4 or 5 events a year, just her.
Yeah. And so, when we're saying this about having gratitude and doing this, we're not sitting there saying you're doing everything wrong, you got to do it. And I want to be real clear, but on that relationship, and I was doing a coaching call earlier today, and I said, you don't want that person when they see your name pop up, go, oh, great. Oh, wow. Hey, hold on. Let me tell you, let me take this call real quick. Hey, what's going on? Not, oh, well, guess what? They want to check when they're sitting there with their friends. That's what you don't want to do. And that's what happens. And it happens like that. And it's not intentional, but if you're not intentional about the gratitude portion, and I mean really intentional, it will slip right by you and you'll be right back into where you need to go ask that person for money. And you haven't primed that pump. And so I think that's the piece too, that Amy and Susanna are really trying to make, is you've got to be that. And so talk to us just real quick, because I want to come back to the fund to need part, but talk to us about that gratitude. You really dial into that, because you mentioned, sending an email, a text, a phone call. How do you guys prioritize that when you're going to do it and who you're going to do it with?
I know for myself, I kind of have a rolling list. And just a little asterisk disclaimer, I have been with MDA. I was with them prior to the pandemic, but I've also worked for small organizations where I was the development director that managed events and wrote the grants and did all the things. And it can be extremely overwhelming. One thing that I did that's very old school, but we had monthly file folders. And so I would drop cards in each month, knowing like that donor's birthday is in March, or that donor, and I would just pull out that month and be like, all right, who do I need to reach out to? And you can also blind copy people. Like, they don't have to necessarily know that you're sending a mass email, but you could just send those email touches if it does feel overwhelming. Send them an email quarterly, send them a card once a year. Like, that little stuff can add up. So I do just want to say that, yes, it can feel overwhelming, but there's great ways to do it, even if you are a one-man band.
Yeah, even be efficient. Yeah.
Well, and I think, we would love for it to be hundreds of donors that we're talking about, but I know
we're not talking about that many.
Yeah, it's not a significant amount of people. I mean, in most cases, you might be talking, some 3 to 5 and some 5 to 10, depending on the event. So you're not talking a significant amount of people. And like Susanna said, I mean, if you are stewarding these donors and you are, planning for your event year round, like you should be, I feel like these donors are kind of in your brain. So when, MDA will send out an email to us that a new drug just got approved. It's an automatic, like, we're sending that out to those donors. Like, it's just
keep them involved.
It just becomes a habit. It's just part of your daily. That's what you think about. And like I said, it's I wish it was hundreds of donors, but it's not.
But and just if folks are hearing this for the first time or what have you, they're just going, oh my gosh, the light bulb's starting to click. You're talking about like 10, 20 of the top donors at your event. You're engaging with them, obviously, hopefully saying thank you night of, engaging with them immediately after from a gratitude perspective. We call it planned gratitude. You all have, something that you ascribe or a label for it, right? But it's, once again, you're not talking about hundreds of people.
It's not everyone that came or every, if you have a walk, it's not every walk person. It's those. And depending on the event, it could be 2,500 and up. It could be 5,000 and up. But, it just block 30 minutes on your calendar once a month to focus on donor development and relationships. It could be committee. It could be your fund and need donors, sponsors. It doesn't have to be a huge chunk of time for it to be a big return on investment.
And we always say, if you don't know what to say, just say thank you.
Yeah. I want to touch on what you said, Susanna. Something that we talk about a lot, and we've got a lot of proof, a lot of examples of how this works is, power of 3. And just, if you make just 3 calls a day, just 3, and we always talk about it with raising money, but if you make 3 calls a day, just even in the gratitude, it doesn't take very long. It really doesn't. If you had a lot of people, let's say you've got 30 people to go through, 10 weeks, 2 weeks, you're done. I mean, it just
Right.
doesn't take that long because we're not talking about calling him, playing phone tag back and forth. You know, hey, Chad, I really want to connect with you. Hey, give me a call whenever you can. It's not that at all. Hey,
Yeah.
Chad,
It's
just
just
want to
leave
tell
a
you,
message.
you just made a huge impact. Thank you so much. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been on the donor side as well, it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When you get a phone, you get that call, there's a warm fuzzy that comes across because you're like, wow, that was really nice. I didn't expect that. That was really kind. It
I love it.
really, really has a lot of impact. I've yet to talk to any donor whenever talking to him. And I said, yeah, did it really upset that they just called and said, thank you? And he goes, no, I love it. You know,
Yeah.
it's always means, and they love to hear what happened.
Well,
Okay,
I think but people don't do that. That's the reason why they love
No.
it so much,
well, and that's right.
right?
And because
That's the,
we get so overwhelmed, we think that we've got to do so much, you know, and Aesop's fable is one of my favorite, the tortoise and the hare, because my personal tendency is to be the hare. I'm bouncing all over the place and here, there, and yonder. But I understand the tortoise part. It's just a little bit of effort consistently over time brings the greatest reward. And so I think that's something that we get in our mind, and we're busy and I've got to do this. That means I've got to make 35 calls. No, you don't. And
I also want to, I just want to stay here just for a second, and I just want to hear it from the two gals that are doing it the most out of this group. The power of the voicemail, the power of the text message. Amy said, I have relationships that are so strong with people, I can literally just send them an email at this point. But like, Susanna, you're on the phone a lot. Like, I'm my gut instinct and just talking to people in the space, they're telling me, and there's literally consultants, like we're having one on in a couple of weeks, who's the phone savant. She's amazing. Kel Haney, awesome. And she's like, there's a lot of power in the voicemail. And don't be afraid of things like that. And don't think that sending someone a 1 minute voicemail, tell them exactly where where they're at, where their money went, how grateful they are, what their intentions are. Even tell them, hey, we're looking for this or what have you. Talk to me just about like literally you're doing this. I call it like hand-to-hand combat on a daily basis now. With your donors and at these different events, like, where's the strength right now? And also, I mean, I just want to hear you say, hey, do it all or avoid this or what have you. Like, just talk to me about what you're seeing, if you don't mind.
I mean, can I just add, we still do handwritten thank you cards.
Good. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right.
We do.
No,
Like we sat in the conference room
good.
before the event writing thank you cards for people that had supported and were going to be at the event, and it's on their table when they get there.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Talk to me, Susanna, about like what you're doing, like
I just want to tell you real quick. I sat on a board one time. Sometimes this lets you leverage this stuff. I sat on a board where they would bring in cards, and every meeting we would have 3 to 4 cards sitting in our deal. And our job part of it was to say thank you. They'd say, have a little list, and they would just prepare it. So I could just sit there and do that, write the card for them, put it in the deal, and have it all ready to go. So that's just a little hack for you.
Yeah.
We did it. We have kids at summer camp, at our MDA summer camp. We'll have them write like pre-written thank you cards and stuff that we have on hand, or like a little like kids art picture or something that we can give to donors.
Yeah, that's cool. Susanna, we'll let you they're going to let you answer the question.
No, you're fine.
Where's the power right now with that kind of approach?
Well, I will say out of all the calls I make, I talk to voicemails far more than I talk to actual people. So if, I think a lot of people, the art of calling has been kind of lost. So I don't really talk a lot. It's very casual. Hey, thank you so much. You don't necessarily have to call me back. Just wanted you to know we really appreciate you. And then if I feel like, you helped us raise $250,000 or you helped us be able to fund a such and such. But really it's simple. People don't need to overthink it or try to come up with a script. I feel like, especially in the nonprofit world, we are super grateful for our donors. So just be honest and transparent and say thank you.
Be you. Just be you. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to bring it back to the fundraising portion. So I'm going to ask you a question. I think I know the answer, but okay. So Susanna, you've got somebody that's a top sponsor. Are you still going to ask them for a fund a need gift?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Someone trained you well.
Yeah.
Did you see me get closer to the
Amy's
screen?
face.
I know. Amy's like,
The answer
was
is
like,
yes. Yeah,
No,
yeah, the tricks.
one
The
of the
answer
things
is
I
yes.
know, this is, I've seen this before where somebody goes, well, I can't, Trevor's he's already wrote us a check for 50 grand. I'm not going to go ask him for any more money. Tell us why he's wrong.
First of all, if they write a $50,000 check, they have some sort of passion for your mission.
Yeah.
So to me, it's almost a lower hanging fruit. The asterisk to that is having the conversation, because sometimes the CEO of the company would agree, but then you're talking to their marketing person or their secretary or whoever. So making sure you're having the conversation with the person who made the decision. But no, everyone, I mean, to be honest, and goodness, this goes way back. Like, you want to have spenders in the room. So even if they bought a table, they should still expect to come and spend money, is what happens in a perfect world. You want them to fill their sponsorship table with people who are going to come and donate. And those are the conversations you can have as you're getting their guest list and that sort of thing. But no, if they've given you a presenting sponsor or a sponsorship of any level, they're committed in one way or another.
It seems kind of like a no-brainer. I mean, they gave you 50 grand. That doesn't mean that they're tapped. Like,
Yeah,
it just
right.
shows, even if
They didn't give you their
There's
last
more
50
where it came from.
exactly.
Well,
They didn't give you the
I
last
think too, you
nickel
also
thing.
have to remember
the
company in a lot of cases gave the money,
Correct.
not the individuals that are
Exactly.
attached to that company. So you've got a company giving that probably has more, and then you've got 8 or 10 guests that came with that
Yes.
that all
Who work
need
for a
to-
company who can give $50,000.
And you make it your point. You make it your job, Susanna, to know that going in. Of course, right? Like, you're just like, and y'all are very unabashed.
Yeah,
about
but I want to just say, I'm going to say right now, don't overcomplicate it. In my experience, the number one thing that I see people do is they overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
I always say, who's your biggest fan? So whoever gave you the most money, whoever gave you the most money is your biggest fan.
Yeah.
They're either going to say, you know what, I'm tapped out, but let me call somebody because I think I know somebody who would do a match. Or
Cool.
they're going to be on your side. They're going to be offended. They're more, I can tell you, you'll make them more offended if you don't ask them than if you do.
All of them. Yeah.
I've never seen anybody they may say, hey, look, we're kind of tapped out on this deal, but I appreciate you asking. What else can I help you with? I mean, am I right? Am I wrong, Susanna?
You've got to be comfortable having awkward conversations.
Yeah. And the way you can do that, hey, I've got
potentially awkward conversations.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you because I want to really hear your ask, because I've seen a situation where people raise significant, because what you're trying to do is get those initial emotions where somebody's raising their hand and everybody's clapping and cheering, and it's contagious. And then the next person says, you know what, I'll give 10,000 and I'll give 10,000 and I'll give 5,000 and nobody wants to be left out. And that's what you're trying to get. So you've got to seed the moment. You got to plant those seeds, stack the deck in your favor by making these asks beforehand, because you don't want to ask for 25 grand and somebody's sitting there going, well, God, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have given this other thing over here. I didn't know they were going to ask for money. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So be real specific, Susanna, because I think I've seen more reluctance and more questions with people in the fundraising world where this is the part, because they just don't know what the words to say are. So, and I know it's probably a little bit different on every occasion, but give me your pitch. If you've not, this person, maybe they've given some money, maybe they haven't. Tell me how you would ask them.
Sure. So a little disclaimer, what got me over my awkward feeling when I started my career.
Yeah.
These people are typically corporate business people.
Okay.
They're very black and white. So I have to go in and be confident in my question, but also know that some of them deal in billions of acquisitions and whatever. Like, me asking for $10,000 in their world is usually not as overwhelming as it is if someone was asking someone who works in the nonprofit world, because we work for feelings, not money.
Yeah.
For feelings.
Yeah.
We have really good karma. So again, it shouldn't be a cold call. I should be able to call and say, hey, Trevor, we're so excited to have you at the event. As you know, during the night, we're going to have our mission moment. This year, we're featuring a good friend of ours, Asher. We're telling his story. I would love for you to help me get momentum in the room. I would love for you to make a donation and help us really get everyone engaged and start that excitement.
Yep. Want to
That's
get you
it.
involved, want to invite you to, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I
And
love
what's
that.
the worst he says? No? Well, then he's going to come and see our amazing video and give it to us anyway. So
Yeah. Amy?
No, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what she said. I mean, it's going to be a straight up, can you, help us get this going and get the momentum going, and, and obviously start the first part of the conversation is a thank you for your gift last year, and then lead into.
Well,
Susanna,
one thing that if you've got some people that are already giving, but one of the things I think is real interesting is the cold ask. And it's not a hard ask. It's actually, I think it's easy. And I've done it. So I guess I can say, because I've asked on behalf of organizations, but when somebody hasn't done it, it's okay just to go, I understand, you've obviously have donated to the organization. You've made this significant commitment. Would you be willing to make a gift that we could use to challenge the room to get other people involved? And I know you could write a check for the whole thing. I'm not asking you to do that, but would you help us with this? So I gave that specific to somebody, and she said, well, who should I ask? I said, we're going to play a little game. I said, go ask Mark to say, hey, I'm going to ask Greg for this. What do you think about that? And I said, let's just see what happens. Well, I kind of knew what was going to happen because I know how these guys think. I happen to know them. And she did. She went and asked Mark. She goes, hey, I'm thinking about asking Greg to put up a gift to do this. And she goes, well, why didn't you ask me? And she goes, well, I think I just did. He picks his phone up, calls him, goes, hey, Greg, we're in for 50. Okay. All right. You got 50,000 like that. Because to the point that Susanna was making, these guys, for $50,000, that's money that falls out of their ashtray. I mean, it's not even a rounding error to where they're at. And I think that's where knowing. But even someone who doesn't have that kind of vast wealth, but maybe they still want to be that. And I've got a real quick example I think is really good. So as a construction company, this was for a hospital. Okay. So there's a couple of construction companies, and that's who they went to. And they said, we know you've done the construction, but we need to buy these warmers. And they got, between the two of them, they raised $125,000 that was going to go above everything else that they did. They committed to the fund of need for that. And then we chopped the money up. Once they made that commitment, well, one guy put 50,000 on this and 25 grand on this. And then the other guy put 25 on this and 10 and 5. And so we kind of broke it all up. So we had all these matches throughout the night, and they turned $125,000 into about 600,000 in the fund of need. So I'm just saying there's a lot, but even if I've got a flip side to story to that. And I want to get back to the ladies here in just a second, because I know they got so much stuff to share, but I got a question. But I walked into a little thing it was a tiny little auction I got asked to do last minute. I said, who's the biggest fan in the room? Who's your biggest fan? And the executive director said, what do you mean? I said, who's giving you the most money? I said, that'd be Miss Johnston. She goes, why? I said, because I'm going to go ask her for some money. And she goes, well, I don't know. She just got through paying for a wedding in Belize and had this other thing going on. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. She didn't give her last nickel for this. And so I went up and talked to her, and I said, would you be willing to make a gift that we could use to challenge the room? I know that you've been very generous. And I said, I want to help, them raise some money here tonight. And she goes, yeah, what are you thinking? I said, I don't know, 100 grand would be okay. She goes, well, how about we start off with 1,000 and see where we go? And she laughed and stuff. She wound up giving $6,000, tiny event, but she also got inspired other people, and they raised another $20,000 because of that. And she was tickled to do it. In fact, she took the microphone from me and started telling people why they need to raise their hand and give to this organization. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, big, little, short, or small, the same rules apply. And that's where I was trying to say, it doesn't matter how big or little. So,
well, the little stuff also adds up. So if you have a smaller scale event, you could have $5,000 to open it up, and, then 2,500 ready. So it doesn't have to be $15, $20, $25,000 conversations. And also, I do want to point out, kind of like you said, if you have volunteers, leverage them, leverage your committee, because a peer-to-peer ask from one businessman who says, hey, I'm going to donate $10,000. What are you going to do? Can even go further than us calling and trying to be like, oh, this is what it would do. It's like that competition thing between two.
Yeah.
So leverage those people that are already committed to the mission or on your committee, or volunteer from you as well. I mean, it doesn't always have to be you making that ask.
Agreed. Yeah. I want to know what got you over the hump with the fear of asking in your previous role, or was it something where just like something just happened? You had a successful phone call, you heard no for the 100th time, because you said you got to get comfortable having awkward conversations, or at least what you perceive to be awkward conversations, because obviously that changes over time. Was it one thing? Was it just consistency over time? Like I said, you heard the 100th no and you're like, you know what, I'm good now. What was it for you?
I worked for American Cancer Society early in my career, and I made my very first committee chair ask for a donation, and it was $10,000. And I still remember getting that win, and it was like, it lit the fire. It was kind of like, okay, I could do this. And then I also, which it still kind of gives me PTSD, but I had one director who would make us role play these conversations, which might be more awkward than actually doing it.
I agree,
but it did kind of help, even though I don't necessarily advocate it. But it is an idea. Like, if you can talk with another coworker and just kind of play around with what you would want to say, like we all practice our elevator speech in a way. Yeah. Think of it kind of like that. Like, what would I say? What do I want to cover so it feels natural?
We've talked to some folks that have gotten in the space from a lot of folks from the for-profit side have gotten in the space recently. We've just having the webinar and the podcast just come across some amazing individuals. And it was interesting. This gentleman whose entire background is like a private equity, just like crazy acquisitions and all this. And he ends up running this really large organization. He's like, you know what I did? I just started talking to everyone. And when we think of it, when you said like the role play ID or what have you, or just the efficacy of that. But he's like, you know what? If I jump in an Uber, I tell the Uber driver about what I do. If someone asks me at the checkout stand, I tell them what I do. And he's like, that's how I honed my elevator pitch or my, my missions marketing message. He's like, you know what I did, Trev? He's like, I just told everybody. I was like, I dug it. It was Lance. It was great. Yeah.
I was going to say, I realized too, all of a sudden when you said he was telling everybody in the cab, and I was like, oh, he's talking about Lance.
Yeah.
So Amy, talk to us about yours, because I mean, I really appreciate Susanna selling that. We're talking about this guy saying these things. Talk to us about yours to get through that, because I think one of the biggest things that I've dealt with in coaching calls is that reluctance to make that ask. So,
I mean, I think something to point out too is you will get over that hump, as Trevor said, but like for me, I still get a little nervous before I call. Like I'm not going to say that like I pick up the phone and I'm like, Johnny on the spot, all confident. Like I still get a little nerves and like think, okay. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, I always said in my sales career that meant you cared.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's true.
I think it's obviously the case.
But I think you're exactly right. You care. And I think, most of us that are in nonprofit, I mean, we're very, very passionate about our nonprofit and what we do and what our missions are. And so to me, that makes it easier, so to speak, to have that passion. But I actually remember we were talking about how we kind of started working together in 2018. That was the time that I went into a national position overseeing all the galas across the country. And we did a lot of training and we did a lot of like best practices. And I feel like that was really when it became a big thing to like do these pre-commits, and you wanted 25% of your mission drive committed before you go into the event and whatnot. And so I did a lot of more like training, it's like post COVID, then I had to walk the walk, because then I was back into the field, like actually, making those asks. And mine was actually a little event in Berks, Pennsylvania, and it's at a Harley dealership, and they literally move out the motorcycles. They call it a black and blue. They wear like black tie and blue jeans. Super fun event. More not your corporate type event in any way, but still money in the room. And I made the ask of the chairperson, because this was our first event we were bringing back post COVID. So it would have been in 2021, fall of 2021. So I asked the chairperson if he would do $20,000. I had looked to previous years to see what that mission drive did, and it was a pretty small amount. And so I asked him to do $20,000 so that we could try and match to bring back what it had done pre-COVID. And that was my first big ask, and he did it. And I want to say now he's up to $30,000 since then, but I started with 20.
Well, something that you touched on early on, Amy, and I want to bring back the conversation about that. So one of the things that I think that people struggle with is because they don't know what to say, so they're frightened to say anything. And so when you go to, and it just, our culture, just people feel weird about asking for money. We just do. I mean, I've done 100 surveys, with boards and all that stuff. And if you say, who here loves to ask people for money? Unless they're a politician, nobody raises their hand. It's just not something that we all think about. But what I found in whenever someone was able to tie it to a specific point of impact, you mentioned, hey, 15,000, that's 3 hours of research or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're sending kids to camp, hey, it costs $1,000 to send a kid to camp. If it's a night, in our facilities and it costs $100, it's $100. All that stuff. If you can tie the ask back to impact, then it really changes things. So talk to us about that, how you guys are leveraging that for your asks and whenever you're talking to people, even whether it's in the room the night of the event or in the preset.
I mean, I think, and we do it both, but I think MDA, we really, really have switched our focus to the research piece of it and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But at one point we were very, very camp focused, kids sell, sending mm-hmm. kids to camp. And so anything that we sent out pretty much was going to ask, can you sponsor sending one kid to camp? It's $2,000 a week. Can you do a cabin of kids, which is $8,000, 4 kids at $8,000. Yeah. So it's, right from the time we send out our sales brochure, our sponsorship packet, whatever you want to call it, to the same thing, the conversations. And then even while the mission drive is taking place, we give talking points to our auctioneer so they can say those things while they're not just up there asking for money. And one of the things we really focus on is making sure we tell our story. Before we do the mission drive, we really focus on having a very good mission moment to bring people to our mission, to attach them to the mission, to set the auctioneer up for success, to make that ask. And like I said, then we give them talking points. They've got every little thing that MDA is paying for, an advocacy trip or a care center visit. They've got all those talking points to put that impact in place.
Love it. You got a plan.
Well, when you do that, it kind of becomes you can also make it an open-ended question, because you can say, if it's $2,000 to send a kid to camp, how many kids would you like to sponsor? Because it's not asking for money, you're asking for impact, and that's a different ask. It's a really different question. And I've, anytime you can tie that, and if you don't know what your mission is, take the main thing, that the people that you serve, divide it by how much money you spend, and you're going to come up with a number. This is not an exact perfect thing. This is close. No. Okay. It cost us $62.87 for every minute that we do this, that we operate in this phone system.
That'll cause paralysis. Those kinds of numbers cause paralysis.
Make it simple. I would say, from my experience, that when somebody's doing that, I've always seen, if you could make it simple, because you talk about trying to set the auctioneer up. If you can make it simple, They can translate that. They can do it. If you got 47 different things that you're asking for, really struggles. I worked with a nonprofit, and the first time I ever did, I said, I don't want to do that. I said, it's really confusing. I said, can we just come down to one thing? And we did, and they raised a record amount. Now, I'm not saying it was all because of that, because they also did their homework, but it changes the psychology of what I'm doing. I'm not giving you guys $20,000. I'm sending 10 kids to camp. That's what I raise my hand for 10 kids, not to give you 20 grand or one kid or, whatever that number is. However you do it, it doesn't matter.
Smart though.
And I just think that those are things that, and because it goes back to the same thing, how many kids, and Trevor, I think of this story because sometimes we get short-sighted with the amount of money we ask for somebody. So I've got a question. Susanna, Amy, tell us whenever you thought that what somebody was going to give and they blew you away because they gave you more money than what you expected.
Ooh, that's a cool.
I'll let Susanna go first.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
It's actually happened quite a few times. I think,
because you're good at your job. Because you're good at your job.
No, but I do think, kind of what Amy said, we really take that time, and there's no one is serving food, no one is eating, the lights go down, like the focus is that mission moment. And we really, if I cried during the video, like I know we did a good video, so I want people crying over their cocktails. And I think people are just touched when they really see it in, for lack of a better term, black and white right in front of their face. Oh, look, this kid, because of this drug, is now able to walk. Or this kid is living a full life that when they used to pass away. For quite a bit of my career, I worked for a mobile bidding company. So I've been to hundreds of fundraising events and seen mission drives across the board. And I think the biggest thing to take away is make that mission moment the only thing happening. Close your bars, close your service. Like, people have to be paying attention so you can bring them in, make them understand what they're doing and the difference they're making. And then I think they'll surprise you.
And do it in like 3
minutes.
3 minutes. Because the longer, it could be the best story in the world, the most compelling, but the longer you go, you lose your audience. Right. So it's got to be like the most compelling thing that they can get out in 3 minutes time.
Literally getting in the weeds here scientifically, like the method, it's 3 minutes or less, and there's nothing else going on. There's no distraction. And we have an opinion about where
be specific. I want to be specific. It's 3 minutes for the mission moment.
Video.
Giving the video, the speaker, whatever you've got happen going on. It's 3 minutes for that piece.
Yes, people's attention spans, especially in this day and age, are short. Let's be honest, even if it's compelling. So you want to really grind.
And our mission, our fund and need, typically, I would say on average is like 8 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
With all of that ask and the paddle raising and all of that.
And typically our auctioneers are going to say like the next 10 minutes are the most important 10 minutes of the evening. This is, if you pay attention to nothing at all, except one thing, pay attention to this.
Getting into the scientific method of MDA fundraising. We are after the live auction. Yes. Okay. All right.
So this was a hill I would have died on a year ago. Like, literally, I believe the mission drive should be after everything. They've spent their live auction money. They've spent their silent auction money. I did have an event last year and Amy was like, nope, you have to do it first. And I was like, there's no way this is going to be successful. I'm telling you, it was amazing.
But it got everyone pumped up. They got everyone pumped up for the live.
We opened up and it was before dinner. I have never done it like that before. So I do believe you really have to look at your event, but I will say industry best practice is the last thing of the night.
Love it.
Well, I think there's a reason behind that. So let me tell you why, because I have had the same thing. I've seen where we did the fund and need first and it was wildly successful. I've seen it where it wasn't so hot. Because somebody was thinking, and it wound up taken away. Let me say it like this. I've never been in a situation where we did the live auction and then we did the fund a need where people in the live auction, the fund a need was hurt, but I've seen it the other way around.
Right.
I personally have seen it where you did the fund a need first and the live auction struggled. I have seen that, but I think it's an emotional reason. I think there's an emotional psychology behind it, not because, they gave all their money and then this was over. I think it was probably went a little bit long and it was a little bit of an afterthought for the auction. I think there has to be a swing, an emotional swing, a rub, if you would. What are the best movies? What do? They make us cry and they make us laugh and we, all that kind of stuff because there's emotional swings involved. Because if you watch a really funny movie and it's all the same gags all the way through the thing, it's not funny anymore. It's just the same thing. You got to have that emotional switch. That's why my opinion is, and my experience share is, you have an exciting auction, which they're not as long as they used to be. When I first started doing this, we'd have 15, 20 items. Now, and even prior to COVID, I probably would have said 8 to 10. And now I'm like 5 to 6 at the most, depending on what
3
it
to
is.
5.
Well, y'all are leaving money on the table. We need to talk.
You guys do items?
3 to 5 items, but we always
sell multiples.
At least one item to sell multiples. Yep.
Yes.
Well, but you're missing a food group because there's 4 things people want. Remember that. So I'm kind of having fun with these ladies because they're great clients. But what I mean by that is you have this auction. It's really awesome. It's really exciting, and everybody's yeah. And then you stop and you bring them back, and you have that mission moment, and it really and that they're ripe and they're ready, and they have that, and so that because they were excited, and then they watch that, and the emotional switch happens, tears roll, and they do it, and then you end the night because you hit your goal and everybody gets to celebrate again. Right. And everybody's cheered and dancing in the street. So I just wanted to make that kind of my experience is why to do that. However, I'm like Susanna, I've done it the other way, but it's really got to be, I think the timing has got to be impeccable. And I think you have to make sure you hit your numbers. And if it's one of those
it's the
things.
only event I'm doing that for.
Yeah.
But again,
it worked great.
It worked with that group of people. It's always been like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
but other than that,
that's what your crowd's used to doing. I'm not, I like to change things and shake things up. And unless this is just a complete overhaul that you're starting over because the event has just turned into a quagmire, then I wouldn't do that. I mean, I would leave it
regardless of the order of mission, drive, live mission, whichever, I still think it's super important to have it early in your program. No matter what order you're in, you want your fundraising first. The more speeches you put in front of it, the more you lose your room. They get drunk, whatever. So regardless of what order, you still have to really put it as early in the program as you can to make it impactful.
Well, I've taken what you said one time, Amy, and I put it into my vernacular: party early or fundraise early, party late.
Yep.
Right.
Fundraise early, party late.
That's Amy's language. We want givers, not eaters.
Givers, not eaters.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? We've got to give something away. We've had some really good stuff.
Thank you so much. Yep.
Well, we've got the ladies here.
I want to continue this conversation because I'm fascinated by the psychology of talking to people about getting involved in events. We just got to keep having this conversation. I think it's really, really cool.
Well, and I think something too is to remember if you're having a conversation with somebody about them giving a significant amount of money, obviously they have it because they've given it before.
Yeah.
And I promise you are not the first and you're not going to be the last to ask them. That they get asked.
Well,
Well, I told somebody this the other day. I said, no one is ever offended when you ask them. They could be broke. I mean, they could be broke. They absolutely could be broke. And they're going to say, you know what? I really appreciate you asking me, but I just can't do it right now. Because guess what? They probably won't, if they're broke, they probably won't be broke for long. They'll have money again and they'll be ready to give again. And so you're not going to offend. I've just never met anyone in my life that was offended that somebody asked them for money. Now, I will tell you this. I've met some people that were offended that they weren't thanked. They didn't
Mhm.
feel like there was gratitude. So back to your point, you
Yeah.
made the first part of it, please, if you, you know, and it's the time you need to start thanking your donors is the day of the event and after. And if it's not, it's today. As soon as you do this, think about this, start going and thanking them.
I want to also say that to piggybacking on Amy's point, though, they're getting asked all the time. So it's a lovely opportunity to not necessarily compete head to head. I have a little saying that I've adopted that's differentiation is stronger than competition. You can bet that those folks are getting asked, not necessarily ad nauseum, but they're being asked often. And the best way for you to get their attention is to be different. And I don't mean like having green hair. God bless you if you do. My daughter, my oldest daughter has had green hair before, but being different in your approach and how genuine and personal and grateful you are and willing to share and invite and involve people in that way. I just think it's a lovely opportunity, to be different. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I would say, on that, if you don't ask them, it's an automatic no.
Mhm.
It's a guaranteed no. Okay.
You know what I would say after that? Just kidding. I'm joking.
I've got a winner. Oh, wait, y'all are seeing the wrong screen. Doggone it. Why aren't you
What are you
seeing me?
doing, man?
I know, we're seeing me.
The
and not
picker
myself.
wheel. That's what you called it. The picker wheel. It's great.
Well, that's what it's called.
Picker
Oh,
wheel.
is that what you're saying?
In NBA, we have the birthday wheel.
Oh, I
Okay.
love it.
Okay.
This is not the wrong one.
I've got a winner. Hold on. Just y'all
Okay.
hold on just a minute.
I already
Genevieve
went-
Koloski. Genevieve Koloski. Yay.
Genevieve.
Genevieve, reach up and touch the screen, spin the wheel. You're going to win a trip to raise
See
more
what
money.
happens. See what happens when you come to the HJ free webinar series. You don't just learn, you win.
Well, and these
Sounds
are great live auction items to split for those
Sounds like a
people looking for
win-win. Yeah.
more
Yay.
items.
What a
Hey,
Caribbean all inclusive
cool.
for two. That's awesome.
Right on. Fun. Yeah. no-
Okay.
we've been calling it the AI for so
I
long.
was just going to say, trying to get in
it's
on
so
that
funny.
AI.
That means all inclusive in our world. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey,
You
Genevieve,
had it
thanks so much for
first.
coming. Everybody, thanks so much for coming. Gals, appreciate you so much. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for sharing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we really
Everybody got a
appreciate
lot
everybody
out of
taking
it.
the time today. I know y'all are
Yep.
busy, so appreciate it so much.
We'll see you all in 2
Awesome.
weeks on February 20th. We'll see you all in 2 weeks for the next free webinar. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Have a great Thursday. Gals, thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. Awesome.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great
All right.
afternoon. See ya.
You too. Bye.
Bye, Jay. Thanks, bro.
See ya.